Hi, I'm Gail.
And hi, I'm Catherine, and welcome to Women Over 70 Aging Reimagined, our award-winning weekly podcast. Please visit womenover70.com and consider joining Aging Reimagined Circle, our sustaining membership fund, so we may continue to inspire women to live and age with curiosity, courage, and creativity. Members enjoy monthly programming and probing discussions, so we hope to see you there.
David Stewart is the founder of Ageist Magazine and Super Ager podcast. He's a passionate champion of the modern 50-plus lifestyle and a leading authority on the mindset and aspirations that drive this influential demographic. As a go-to reference on people in our age group, he frequently shares his expertise and insights with major media publications, including Wall Street Journal, The Times of London, CNN, South China Morning Post, Forbes, and Fortune. David also consults for a wide range of Fortune 500 brands and businesses. While interviewing David is a departure from interviewing women 70 to 100 plus, we feel that what he has to say contributes to our mission of Aging Reimagined. An entertaining and lively speaker, David delivered keynotes at the Global Wellness Summit in Singapore, HIMMS in Las Vegas, Monaco Quality of Life in Zurich, and many other large-scale ventures. Before he launched Ageist, David was an award-winning photographer whose work includes multiple magazine covers and global advertising campaigns. So, David, welcome to Women Over 70 Aging Reimagined.
Oh my gosh, Catherine and Gail, great to be here with both of you. Looking forward to this.
Thank you. When we spoke at great length. You talked about sexism and gender differences and how women do not effectively use their capability and capacity to change things. So we'd like you to say more about that.
I think perhaps what I said was women are the ones that are changing things. And it's the men that just sort of, fade away in this age group.
Yeah.
And I think, you mentioned sexism, which is very much a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a number of advantages that women have. Principally, they've dealt with sexism their entire lives. So they've dealt with an ism. They're used to it. For men, ageism is just like a whole new, they've never experienced this. It's a completely new thing. And they're ill-equipped.
Okay. And go ahead, Catherine.
Well, I'm really happy to hear you say this because I was going to have to take issue with you. You said that women were not effectively using their capabilities. So
Right.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, no, not at all. In fact, I had a conversation not that long ago with the head of the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, asking him about what I saw was that, over about 60, women are leading everything. They're starting all the organizations, they're leading the organizations, they're starting the companies, they're the ones that are making real change in the communities. And the men, I can say this because I'm one of them, they're just like a special needs disaster group. You're in terrible shape.
Over 60, you mean?
Yeah. And I asked, we had this discussion about this, and what he said was in the near future, there are going to be board meetings, and the board is going to say, we need more diversity in here. We need to bring some men in. Now, that's not the case yet, but I can very much foresee that happening, which personally I think is great. I was brought up by a single mom, so I perhaps have a different view on these things than other people do.
Well, that was a trick question, and you passed. So.
Oh, good. Thank you.
We don't do that to women. We only do it to men.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fair enough, yeah.
I was just going to follow up on that. I was going to ask you a little bit more about what makes you stand apart from this disaster group. Why are you different?
Why am I different? Well, I think that it's that's nobody ever asked me that question. Catherine. I think, I definitely have issues. But I think one of the advantages that I don't want to be so personal to me, but I tend to be really curious, and I'm just one of these people that I feel an absolute need to learn new things all the time and do new things, and I am also somebody I know from having done Ageist for 9 years. One of the things that we have to do, especially as men, is just say yes. So somebody invites you somewhere. Hey, I got a group, we're going bowling. And you say to yourself, I hate bowling. I don't care. It's not about the bowling. Just go. Just say yes. And I think that, I've had the privilege of been doing this for 9 years. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people. On my podcast, I've spoken to dozens of the leading experts on this. And so I sort of know the pitfalls. And I sort of know what to do. My wife will probably have a different view. That's there are definitely some things, I learned, well, for instance, this week's lesson was, she was like, well, I need you to do active listening. And I thought what she was saying was attentive listening. So deeply focused and David shutting up, which makes her really nervous because I'm not reacting. And she's like, no, you idiot. You're supposed to reflect back to me what I'm saying. Oh, okay, got it. Right. So there's still some issues here I'm working with.
That's great. Thank you.
So you talk about super agers. You have a super ager podcast.
Yeah.
And so what is it you're trying to do with super agers?
Well, in fact, you guys took the quiz. You took the, if you go to ageist.com/quiz, you can find out what type of super ager you are. So when we talk about super aging, it's, what we're discussing here is sort of how to age and live optimally for who you are. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to understand that context, that we all have different ambitions, we have different capacities, we have different interests. And the Super Age podcast tends to be more, it's very sort of sciencey, medically, a little bit of finance stuff. And it's about talking to the leading experts out there about what is happening now, what may be going on, different things that we can avail ourselves to. With the Super Ager quiz, what we've done is we realized after I just want to say, we're really slow learners. It took us a long time to understand that, not everybody's the same. So we've developed this quiz, and so then we can give people information sort of where they're at. And you're both foxes, so foxes are curious. They like to learn things. But my guess is you're not the sort of people that stay up at night reading PubMed articles. And you're also not the sort of people that are like, throw a couple of steaks on the Barbie. So, we target this information towards where people are at so they can most utilize it. It's not that the information is all that different. It's just contextualized for where people are at.
And you think that people will do something with this information? What do you think they'll do?
Well, I mean, ideally, if I give you a tip, Gail, about how to sleep better, now you may or may not do it. That's up to you. But I hope to present the tip to you in a way that's most accessible to you. So if one day you say to yourself, I'm not sleeping that well, what can I do? You can say, oh, right, that guy, he sent me this tip. Maybe I'll try this.
So how is it that you have gotten into this side of aging with people? Where did all this come from, and why you, David?
Oh my God, you guys ask the hardest questions. Nobody asks you this stuff. Well, I think, as I said, I'm very curious, and I was about 56. I'm going to turn 65 in like 2 weeks. I have a Medicare card now. Super cool. Love Medicare. And so at 56, I was doing a lot of big advertising campaigns as a photographer, and I noticed, pretty much the people I'm taking pictures of have been for the last 30 years. They stay the same age, and I get older, my friends get older. And then all the stuff that's aimed at people my age at that point was this highly medicalized and really infantilized. I was being treated as if, like, at 35, I had no aesthetic, desires. All that stuff went out the window. And it was just, the golden retriever on the beach and the khakis and that scene. And I just thought, I don't know anybody like that. That's weird. What's up with this? And it really just started as an investigation, a curiosity. I didn't understand the mismatch between the amount of resources spent to communicating to younger people versus the spending of people our age. That seemed weird. And then all the communication, like youth-oriented communication, is all inspirational, aspirational. And suddenly you cross an age line, and it's like we're a problem in need of a solution. And I thought, that I don't get it. So we started, and it wasn't, my great world domination plan was we created this really primitive text-only newsletter, and we sent it to 50 of our friends, hoping that they would remain our friends. And that was it. And then, now this is many orders of magnitude bigger than that. And we have all these different channels, and we, it's a much bigger thing. And it just grew, but it wasn't, I'm not one of these people that can grow by intention. I mean, some people, they'll lay out these business plans in year 1, year 2, year 3. And to me, this is just all BS. It's just like, you have no idea where you're going to be in a year. Like, let's just see how to get through like the next 2 months and see where we're at and reevaluate. And that's what we did.
You're speaking to the choir, David.
Yes. So, all right. So Super Agers is a podcast. You interview people. You just told us all about that, which is fascinating. And then Ageist Magazine. So what's that about?
Well, that's our main vehicle. That's sort of where we come from. And I've started my career in magazines, and I really like that sort of feel. Print, just the economics of that doesn't work. So we do a weekly magazine, which is, I have to say, an insane amount of work.
Yes.
And we do it at a very, very high level of quality. And the way we do it is, the main tentpole is we do a profile every week. And this profile is illuminating somebody over 50 who, and the age range, I think once we did somebody who was like 48. And I think the upper range is, I think like 89 is the oldest person we've done. And it's really showing people that who we think have an interesting story in some way, or they're doing something interesting, something that's worth merit. And the idea of the profile is to just put options on people's menus. We're not saying you have to live like this. What we're saying is, this is an option. You may not have thought of this. And if this person is doing this, what else can you do? And it sort of just provokes, because I find that one of the biggest limitations all of us at any age, humans have, is a poverty of imagination. We just can't really imagine what we can do. So if we can expand that imagination, that's great. And then the rest of the magazine is, we talk about travel, we talk a lot about health science stuff, we talk about fashion, we talk about food, we talk about where people can live. We usually every week have some piece on culture. I'm currently, the whole Taylor Travis thing is going on, which I find absolutely, I'm just smitten with both of them. Why? I have no idea, but I am. So we talk about these things, and part of it is we like like we don't dumb it down. And because of that, our readership is just insanely loyal. We have open rates that, it's like a bad week is like 55%. A good week is like 70. Like at our scale, to have those kind of numbers, nobody has that. And it's because every week we work so hard on it, and we really want to do the best we can for our people. And we publish gender neutral. And there's a reason for that. I could like 5x my readership if I just did like female. But I don't. And the reason I don't is because I think both genders genders age very differently, as we spoke earlier. And I think it's really important to have this sort of cross-gender information flow, so that women understand what the men are going through and the men understand what the women are going through. And to me, I think it's more interesting. And I'm in charge, so I get to pick.
Well, thanks for throwing those numbers out there. Women over 70s episodes get a consistent 70 to 80%.
There you go.
Yeah.
That means you got a loyal.
Yeah. Base. We really have a loyal base. Yeah.
I mean, I know just for comparison, most people it's under 10.
Amazing. Yeah. So, yeah. So, did you have a question, Catherine?
You're probably going to ask it, and that is about functional living.
Oh, I love that word.
It's your word. What does it mean?
Yeah, well, because I think so there's in the sort of longevity space, there's people talk about chronological age. So like I'm going to be 65 chronological age. And then there are various different metrics for what people would call biological age, either based on biomarkers or methylation tests or things like that. And I like this idea of functional age, like functional living. So that means, like, I don't really care what your biological age is. What can you do, right? Because I feel really strongly about this idea of being useful and having impact and helping others. The more functional you are, the more you can have impact and help others, and the less people are, taking care of you. So, like, that to me seems like the goal. What's your methylation age? Okay, that's a nice cocktail party topic, but how does that impact the people that you can help? How does that, I feel like the stronger we are in terms of not just going to the gym and picking stuff up, but emotional strength, relational strength, financial strength, all of these things, I think we need to really work on those. And the reason for that is not to put numbers up on the board. It's because strength times engagement times years alive equals your impact. So, that's sort of why, people often misinterpret when I say, this idea of functional health or be strong. I want you to be as strong as possible so that you can do these things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. We'll keep going because, how do you talk about functional strength within, or how do you look at it or bring people on to discuss it? How do you use it in your universe?
I think that this idea of function, it just sounds so like tech bro functionality, but it's really this idea of usefulness. And to me, that's the name of the game. And I think when we're younger, it's about, okay, we need to differentiate ourselves from our parents. We want to achieve. We want to make our mark in the world. Maybe we got kids, we got mortgage, and all this sort of stuff. And it's oftentimes sort of head down, not really looking around. You're just on this sort of rail track going forward. And then there comes a point where not everyone, but people tend to become more self-reflective. And this can often lead to a crisis. And I see it sometimes with parents, people are having children much older now. So they can be 60, 70, and suddenly they're empty nesters and totally disorienting. Or they've been forcibly retired, or they've been divorced. All of these things are really disorienting. And what I'd like to do is to bring the focus back to how are you being useful today? Who did you help? Who's counting on you to get out of bed today? If there's nobody counting on you to get out of bed, fix it. Get involved, start helping people. And it's as easy as your neighbor's having trouble taking the trash out, take the trash out. You can volunteer, you can start a business, you can get a job. It can be as, useful, small you can just, what I tell people is you want to be functional? The first person you're in an elevator with, or you see on the street, you say, hey, I love your shoes. Those are great. So now you've engaged. You've noticed that person, and they're going to feel better the rest of the day because of what you just said. You can scale that up, and, you can be Maria Shriver or something if you want to scale up to that level. But it all comes from the same impulse. Right. How can I be helpful? How can I be useful? In order to be that, you need to be functional, or else you can't do that.
This is so interesting to me because some of the older women that we've been talking with are at that point where they are certainly more self-reflective. They're also wrestling with sense of purpose, being useful. What about just being? How do I be? How do I be in the moment? How do I engage my spiritual self? And it seems to be a tension between being.
Well,
what do you think?
I think they inform each other. I think that one of the skills that we learn as we get older is being able to just, be a human being and not be a human doing. You can just sit. I don't, unless your desire is to become like a monk somewhere, I don't encourage doing that 24/7. That's just not how we're wired for community. We're wired to be cooperative, to help each other. And I think that by just sitting and, being, just feeling your body, feeling your feet on the ground, what are you hearing? Not really doing anything, just observing is a skill. And this skill, I believe, will help you to become more empathetic with others, to be able to listen, to really hear what they're really saying, and also to be in touch with what's good for you. So my sense of usefulness is probably very different than yours. That's okay. I mean, it works for me, and whatever you're doing works for you. But we need to be centered in who we are. And it's one of the, what I was saying earlier, Catherine, this idea of being on that railroad track where you're just you are a doing. You are a 24/7 doing machine. And then, you have enough time and you start to feel other things out there. And you've been away from your parents long enough, so it's you don't need to rebel or please them or whatever. You've done whatever you do in your career. Maybe you want to do more, but you can have a sense of reflection. But I think you need to be able to have that center. This is who I am. These are my fundamental core values. I'll say that, we do a lot of consulting, and if we work with sometimes a lot of startups or newer companies, and very often the younger people, if they're starting a business, they can't do this. And so what they do is they try and think up values. They think up this corporate gobbledygook and this is just nonsense. And then you have to say to them, like, if you go forward on this path, you will fail because there's no center to this. This is just something you learned in business school that you think is going to be good. You can sustain this for a short period of time, but you're going to run this company into the ditch because what are your fundamental founder values? You need to get clear about what you're doing here, or just go open a dry cleaning store, like, right? But older people, they get that, and they know, I will not cross this line. This is not me. Even though this could make me a lot of money, there's nothing wrong with this, there's nothing illegal. This is not my thing. I'm not going there. And this is one of the gifts that people have as they get older.
You talk, yeah, very well said. You talk about being the leading authority on the mindset and aspirations of our age group. So,
oh gosh, more interrogation. Well,
yeah. And what do you do with it?
Well, I mean, I know. So the reality is, as we get older, youth culture is a monoculture. I don't mean to be insulting to younger people, but they all they're pretty much all the same. That also sounds really bad. They share a very similar culture. But as we get older, this splinters radically. And the older we get, the more it splinters. And it's based on, geography, education, health, a lot of different things. So I know nothing about the people who, they want to go out and like drink and smoke themselves to death and play golf and die in 5 years. I know zero about that. I don't get it. What my data people tell me is that the 17% of the people that are in this age group who are looking forward, who feel positive about the future and want to do more, who are living in this vital, vivid, sort of forward-leaning way, those people I know a lot about. Those are my people. And the other people out there, they follow us and they want to learn from us, but I'm not the authority on that. I'm not.
And so what do you know about them?
Well, our people, what I know is we're not done, basically. We're just not done. We feel there's a lack of fear. There's a confidence. And I think this is one of the main sort of demarcators, and that something that I have a huge problem with. So there's one very large, well-known organization for people our age that just loves to fearmonger, and makes me crazy. And our people tend not to be that scared. They're like, I'm okay. I got this. I can figure stuff out. I'm not, it's like I tell people, in 3 years, you can learn anything. You're not going to be translating Mandarin at the UN, but you can speak it if you want, if that's what you want to do. If you want to program, if you want to do whatever, you can learn this. And, our people want to expand. They may be pulling back in a certain way, but overall they're expanding. They want to meet more people. They want to be more information. They want to learn more. They want to be, as I said earlier, more useful. And that's what I know about them.
Yeah, that's great. Well, what else do you have to say to the women over 70? And, of course, all of our listeners who are in other age groups as well. So, as we close this, because time always goes too quickly, what would you like to leave us with, David?
You guys rock is the deal. And I when I speak at these like big events, I say this and I get some pushback about it. But as we started the conversation, women in this age group have a strength and a capacity and a skill set that is dominating. And it's something that I find really inspiring. And you know, I've talked to a lot of people about this. I don't have a really clear answer for the why, but I think that there is, if you look at sort of, you know, we live in this youth obsessed culture. Okay, this is like where we live. But if you go to other places of the world that are less youth obsessed, women, who are people going to for advice? Who's running the show? It's the women over 70. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Absolutely. You guys are great.
It's a pleasure to meet you, the person behind the words.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah.
And listeners, thank you for your loyalty. Because of you, our numbers are growing all across the country and overseas, and this is a good thing. Still, we need more subscribers and reviews on Apple Play and YouTube. Support Women Over 70 and let your voice be heard. Help us change the conversation about women aging.
Good idea.